Tonight we're starting a brand new series. We are in the season of Lent. In the season of Lent. And if you weren't here last week for Ash Wednesday, we kind of shared something with you that was pretty cool. We have this Lenten guide to prayer and fasting for Lent. So if you want to endeavor to have a more, more powerful prayer life, want a guide for your prayer life over the next 40 days or so, at least until Easter, then we got these at the welcome desk, and I'll say this is something that you could pray with every morning. And there's so many cool prayers and different things that you can do just in the privacy of your bedroom or dorm room or whatever it is. Like this is great. So I really hope that you'll take advantage of it. If your only intake of Jesus is here, we love that. We're so glad. But I want you to know that Jesus is available for you at all times, and this could really help you. It helps me. This is what I use in my current private quiet time with the Lord. So, it's good. It's good stuff. So, get into that. Tonight we're starting a new series. This series is one that has been on my heart for a while. It's something that I've really kind of been thinking and praying about. When was the right time to share this series? And, it comes from one of my favorite stories in the entire Bible. But more than that, more than just a favorite story, this, I believe, is a series and a message that hits us all. Because every one of us has a story. Every one of us has a past. Every one of us have had things that have gone less than ideal in our lives, right? Jesus, one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible, John 16:33. You know what Jesus says? Jesus says, "In this world, you will have trouble." And I love that verse. I love it. In this world, you will have trouble. Because that is a verse that it doesn't take a lot of faith to really believe in. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's like, I don't really know so much about, Jericho walls falling down. I'm going to trust you in faith on that one. There's like the Jonah whale story. There is Moses and the parting of the sea. Those things take a little bit more faith. But when Jesus says, "In this world you will have trouble," that's the loudest amen that I can ever give. It's like, Jesus, you get it. Jesus, you got it. No, you got it. That proves it right there. The resurrection also, but that's a good one. John 16:33. Here's what Jesus says: "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Take heart, I have overcome the world. And so in our lives we've had trouble. And this series is designed to kind of help us think through trouble. And specifically trouble that was not our doing. Because there are things that happen in this world that are beyond our control. And this is a series that's all about that. In fact, the title of this series is pretty simple. It's called "What They Meant for Evil." What They Meant for Evil. Because there are times in our lives when people that are supposed to love us, people that are supposed to care for us, take care of us, disappoint us. And not just disappoint us, they harm us. And sometimes that harm is intentional. Sometimes it's unintentional. But a lot of times there are people, relationships in our lives that have disappointed us to the point that it really feels like they did a lot of evil to us. And at the beginning of the series, I just want to spoil the ending for you. We're Christian people. We believe that the worst thing isn't the last thing. That evil doesn't get the last word. But before evil doesn't get the last word, sometimes we live in that midst, where it seems like evil wins. Where it seems like darkness is prevailing over light. With me, I speak from experience. Where for years and years and years and years and years, there was darkness. There was a cloud of darkness in my life. I believed in God, but I still walked blinded to the light of freedom and victory and healing. That might be where you are. What they meant for evil, God turns for good. So we're going to be looking at, oddly enough, one of the earliest stories in Judeo-Christian faith and history in the Scriptures. We're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 37. You're like, Genesis 37, we all know that one. Genesis 37 is the story of a guy named Joseph. Joseph is one of my favorite characters in the whole Bible, and you may know part of his story. We're going to deep dive into it for the next 4 weeks, and then we got the 5th week that is a little bit about Joseph and a whole lot about Jesus, because that's Holy Week, and we're going to deal with that. But also, we're going to kind of end this series with some Jesus stuff right there at the end, because Jesus is, I believe, the culmination of the Joseph saga, and we'll get into that in week 5. Okay, but tonight we're going to start with Joseph. Joseph is kind of this origin story. We're going to be talking about this origin story of Joseph tonight. Joseph, as you may recall, is this pretty incredible guy in the Genesis passage. In fact, toward the end of Genesis, we get this story of how the people known as the Israelites moved to Egypt. And it's really through this guy named Joseph. Today we're going to hear the very first story about Joseph, and I think it is amazing, and more than that, it has some things to teach us about pain in the world, and suffering, and maybe even some about our own pain. So I'm going to read a whole chunk of Scripture tonight. It's easy to kind of like tone out and be like, oh, whatever, blah, 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 get to the sermon. I don't want you to do that. Because the Scripture is life on the page. Even when it's on the screen, it's life on the screen. Okay? So I want you to lean in, because these are words of life that the Holy Spirit, through writers, put on the page for the edification, the encouragement, for the salvation of people like you and me. So lean in tonight and listen to these scriptures. Okay, so Genesis 37, starting in verse 1, it says, Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the count of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, just a little younger than you, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. Don't read too much into that. It's a cultural thing. And he brought their father a bad report about them. So, what's going on? Young Joseph is bringing bad news about his brothers. How many of you are little siblings? How many of you? Okay, great. You're Joseph. How many of you are older siblings? Yeah. What do you do when the younger sibling rats you out? Everybody, oh my gosh, that was beautiful. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Oh wow, that was a move of the Holy Spirit. Right? I've never seen anything like that. That's incredible. Exactly. Snitches get stitches, and so do little brothers and sisters when they rat on us. So, I'm an older brother, I get it. I get God, this is incredible. It was like I trained you, but I didn't. Gosh, that's great. Okay, so that's kind of the way this story begins. Joseph is the little sibling. And then, if that's not bad enough, verse 3, now Israel, the father Jacob, he also goes by Israel, long story, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. You ever ask your parent who's your favorite? Ever done that? No, I don't know. Most of us are not old enough to ask the parent who's the favorite. Because we either know it's us or we wonder if it's the other. We just don't want to answer. Well, the Bible clarifies this for Joseph. Joseph is daddy's favorite. And so, Israel loved Joseph more than any of the other sons because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an ornate robe for him, a coat of many colors, some translations say. And some musicals say it's a Technicolor green coat, whatever that may mean to you. Okay? So he's got this real fancy, like, Gucci coat. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they, say it with me, hated him. They hated him. Thank you. That was good. And they could not speak a kind word to him. You been there? When you hate somebody so much you just cannot speak a kind word to them? On the other hand, have you ever been hated by someone so much that, God, they can't speak a kind word to you, and you're so nice, and you're so optimistic, and it's just like you're skippy-doo-dying the whole day long, and they are just so mean. They're like, I hate when he whistles. He's always so happy, and happy people suck, and I hate him. Joseph. Well, they're there. Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. Now, you might be like, well, what kind of dream was that? Listen to this dream. He said to them, now this is it. one thing to have a dream. It's another to tell those about whom the dream is. It's a whole other thing to tell them about your dream. So here's what the dream was. Listen to this dream I had, brothers. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field. You get that, right? We're doing yard work. When suddenly, my sheaf, my yard work portion, the pile of leaves that I had raked, rose and it stood upright, while yours gathered around mine and bowed down to it. Oh, man. Yeah, you know what's coming, right? You know. You know yeah, boom, yeah, just like that. And his brothers said to him, "What is this? Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Okay, so gosh, they are just boiling. And then he had another dream. Are you ready for this? He had another dream, and he told it to his brothers because the kid just does not. He's like a 3-year-old. If he thinks that he says it. It's the longest story ever, because that's what toddlers do. You ever have a toddler in your life? I've got several toddlers in my life right now, because there's just this thing with children, when they start to be able to speak, they don't stop speaking until they're about maybe 13, and then they get edgy. And then it's like, gosh, I wish you would tell me a little bit about your life, but really, the parents' prayers are finally being answered by the time the kid is a teenager, because they're like, God, will the kid ever shut up? Well, if you don't have a toddler in your life, I'm going to go on for a second. If you don't have a toddler in your life, they have one word that will drive you up the wall. You know what it is? Why? Yes! It is the question, why? And you're just like, because I said so. Because I said so. And that is the constant refrain. I don't know why I'm talking about parenting. I'm not a parent. But I'm still not talking about toddler parenting. Boy, it's fun. So anyway, he said, I've had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. Not just yard work anymore, all the cosmos. Now, if you really want to get into some things, like we could go kind of deep level stuff, the sun, the moon, and all the stars, well, these could also be Egyptian gods. That's kind of an interesting thing. So they're here, and they're like, okay, sometimes a dream is just a dream, but they're also listening, they're saying, okay, it's not just we are going to bow down to you, but you're talking Pharaoh. You're talking the gods of Egypt. Everybody's bowed down. We get it, Joseph. Take your coat and go home. Well, when he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him. That's a good dad, trying to keep him from getting beaten up by his brother. When he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Were your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. It's like, well, if any of my sons could do it, it'd be Joseph. Now, the brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem. They're serving the shepherds for this particular day. I love the idea that all of Joseph's brothers are like a giant, like 11, 10, 11, 12 strong horde of people. And they just kind of all travel together, and there's Joseph, like skipping along, playing his hopscotch. He's 17 years old. He's a kid in my mind because of the story. And he's just chasing after Big Brother all the time. But Big Brothers are all hanging out, doing their Big Brother things. They're all being real cool. And then here comes Joseph. So they're out grazing the flocks. And Jacob / Israel said to Joe, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them. Come play with your brothers. Why? Maybe Joseph was driving him crazy. I don't know. But he's like, just go play with your brothers. And anytime that the older sibling is told by the parents, hey, go bring your little brother or sister along, it is such a drag, you know? And if you're the younger brother or sister and you finally are told to go with your older sibling, it's like, this is an awesome day. I'm really excited. So I get like there's a dichotomy here. We're about to swap up older sibling and then all the younger siblings. So I guess we're going to fight. I don't really know. But like there's definitely a dichotomy here, okay? So here's what happens. Very well, he replied. So he said to him, go and see if everything's okay with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me. And then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, what are you looking for? He replied, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks? Well, they've moved on from here. Why? Because they probably saw them on the horizon. You can't miss that coat for anything. So they moved. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan, not Alabama. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him from the distance again. And they're like, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Things have escalated. But you know what? All they've heard for 17 years is little Joseph this, little Joseph that. Okay, we all get the same Christmas present, and he gets, not Christmas, I get that, but he gets the fancy coat, and we all get, like ornaments. Anybody get ornaments for Christmas? So, okay, that's a family tradition for me. I get that. I see that hand. We all love the ornaments, and my grandmother used to say, this will always remind you of me for the rest of your life. I'm like, how morbid. Like, this is the birth of the Lord. There's a lot on my mind tonight. I don't know. Thank you for being my therapist. They told him from a distance, they said, we're going to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him. Let's throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Resentful, spiteful brothers. So they're like, we're going to kill him. However, one of the brothers, Reuben, hears this, and so he tries to rescue Joseph from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Let's throw him into this cistern, this pit, here in the wilderness. But let's not lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and hopefully to take him back to their father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, that coat. Oh, God, they got that coat. And they ripped it. They stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and they threw him in the cistern. And the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Cistern is a place that water is collected because they're in a desert. You know what I'm saying? So as they sat down to eat their meal, that's a great line. Because it's like, we have wrapped up our brother, we've torn his clothes off, we've thrown him into this pit. Boy, that was really strenuous. Let's have lunch. It's like, all right, Reuben, sandwich, let's do this. And so they sit down to eat their meal, and they look up, and as fate would have it, there's a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded down with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Oh, it's a group of merchants. Praise Yahweh. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. Everybody's like, See, they were hangry before, and now they've got some food in their stomach, and now they're more themselves. We're not going to kill them, we're going to sell them slavery. So his brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, and his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver. 20 bucks. No, it's more than that, but 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern, because he'd gone away, I guess he did not care for their lunch, or maybe he'd gone to prepare sandwich, I don't know, saw that Joseph was not there. He tore his clothes. That was a ceremonial thing, don't worry about it. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? And then they got Joseph's robe. And they slaughtered the goats. Gosh, they're just like a brood of like vandals. Okay, like we've sold our brother into slavery, we're going to kill the goat. But what they do, they dip the robe in blood, and they come up with this idea. They took the ornate robe back to their father and they said, we found this. Examine it. Do you think it's Joe's? Do you think it's Joseph? I hope it's not. It's like flashing in Technicolor green colors. But maybe it's not his. He recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. And so Jacob tore his clothes. There's a lot of clothes shedding and tearing in this story. Instead, he put on sackcloth, which is very uncomfortable, and it helps you mourn better. And he mourned for his son, meaning that it's true, people wear this to remember how uncomfortable they are, and they would be reminded to pray. You're fasting during Lent. Every time you feel hunger or desire to do that thing that you fasted from, you're supposed to point to God. Well, what if you wore a really gross, awful sackcloth, or a potato sack, okay? And you're trying to like live life, and all of a sudden it's like, this is awful. Well, that's not it. Pray to God, Lord, remember how bad life is. And he did. And all the sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. There's no comfort here. My son is dead. No, I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave. So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. So let me ask you, that's a long story. Where was God? Where was God in that? God's not mentioned in this passage. I think it's really interesting because there's times in my life when I have no idea where God is. And boy, am I going through it. And I'm like, where is God? And I love the fact that Genesis 37 does not mention God. I love it. I love it because I get that story. I've never been thrown in a pit, but I've been in a pit, metaphorically. And I do not know where God is when I'm in that pit. I want to offer two things to you. Where was God? First of all, there was no water. His brothers were going to throw him in the cistern one way or another. Cisterns usually look like this, flooded with water. It kind of looks like a catacomb sort of thing. In fact, the guy over here is snorkeling. You see that? That is a snorkel. A guy that this is a recent discovery in Israel, where they discovered a 1,500-year-old cistern, and this is what it would look like. If they had thrown him in there, he'd drown. But it was a dry season. The cistern had no water. So on the right, you've got a bit more of an idea of what one of these hallways, it seems, looked like in this cistern, in this reservoir. So he's in this pit. You know what else I noticed about this? He's not speaking. Joseph has done a lot of talking, like a toddler, in the first part of this chapter, but when he's thrown in the pit, there's no speaking. Maybe he's so far in that they can't hear him, or maybe he is on the walls trying to find a way out. Because that's a lot like me when I'm in a pit. I'm just looking every which way for a way out. It doesn't seem like God's answering that prayer. Maybe that's what you've been to at some point. It's like, I don't see a way out of this. There was no water, though. If there had been water, his brothers would have drowned him, I think. Sometimes, it's also kind of interesting, like I said, cisterns were meant to be filled up with water so that people could be preserved in the desert. This was a place that was supposed to bring life, but it was bringing death. And I believe that Joseph was thrown into a place that was meant to bring life, and it was very dry, because God had a plan for him that he would bring life to a place that was very dead one day. How many of you know that your trial and your tribulation will one day be part of God's triumph? Your trial and tribulation will turn into a triumph for God. There was no water, but there was Joseph in there. And one day Joseph would be that source of life for so many people. The second way that I see God is our buddy Reuben. You can maybe say Judah as well, but Reuben. When they saw him in the distance and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Here comes the dreamer! Come down, let's kill him. Throw him into one of these cisterns and say what a ferocious animal devoured him. And Reuben said, don't shed any blood. Yeah, throw him into the cistern. Don't take his life. Don't lay a hand on him. And he wanted to take him back. There's an interesting book by a guy named Walter Wink. It's called Engaging the Powers. And the powers of this world, according to Ephesians, is not flesh and blood, but it's the spirits, the powers, the authorities, the principalities, the systems of this world. Have you ever been in a group where suddenly there was a spirit that came over that group and it was not a good one? It starts to spiral. Suddenly it's an idea, and then it begins to spiral out of control as something that was maybe innocent, or maybe a little mean-spirited, turned into something much, much worse. Have you ever been in that sort of group? It's kind of like dipping your toe into temptation, and then before you know it, by the end of the night or the next morning, you have really been sunk. Reuben senses there's a spirit among his brothers, and it's murderous and violent, and he speaks into it. He's like, whoa, this is not a good idea. Let's not harm him. Let's not take his life. And he has the courage and the boldness to speak into a situation that was going down a very difficult, wrong path. They were just going to kill the brother. Reuben said, let's not do it. That's a prophetic voice in a very strange story. And one of the things that I think that we're called to do in this world is to take note of the spirits that are in the groups that we are in. And I don't mean like necessarily like a demon behind every tree or whatever. What I do mean is that there's a spirit of addiction. There's a spirit of violence. There's a mean-spirited spirit of gossip that can begin to fester in people. And maybe a Reuben is going to say, well, whoa, we want a different spirit. We want a different spirit. Let's abort this mission. Reuben engaged the spirit and power that had overtaken the mob, and then he sought to bring salvation by any way possible, to the point that he even has an ally in Judah. While Reuben has stepped away, Judah says, hey, new idea, we really want to get rid of this guy, let's just sell him into slavery. Well, selling him into slavery doesn't seem like a good idea until you realize the alternative is to murder him. And then suddenly, Joseph is like, I'll take that one. They sell him into slavery. This is plan C. Plan A was murder him. Plan B, well, toss him in the well, leave him to die. Reuben was going to save him. Plan C, let's sell him to slavery. I don't know what your pit has been in life. I don't know. What I do know is that all of us experience the pit at some point. It leads us to a question. And this is for those of you who may have been in the pit, but especially for those of you who have friends and loved ones that are also in a pit. Because you may not be in the cistern at this point, but you may have friends that deeply are in that pit. And they cannot see the light of day. They cannot see the light of God. And the question is, how do I help my friends who are in the pit? For this, I'm actually going to turn it over to a video. I've used this in a lot of my classes, and I think there's a lot to kind of be taken from this. All right.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I have it, yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one thing that sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
People that are in the pit don't necessarily expect you to pull them out of the pit. They expect you to be there with them in the pit. Joseph didn't have that luxury. And so what was meant for evil for him could have been the end of his story. What was meant for evil for him left him alone and broken, and a lot of times off where we feel. Now, as a campus ministry, as believers, we want to step into that place with people. And in order to do that, we're not going to fix them at all. So I love what happens when the bear in the video takes his hat off and there's a storm cloud for himself. What a great image. And it's this image that says, I've got to connect with something deeply inside of myself to enter into this with you. And I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm not going to try to solve it. But I'm just glad you told me because we're going to share it together. It's not even saying to the person, what do you need from me? Because that can put more stress on them. Instead, it's a way of simply saying, I am here with you. Boy, this sucks. Now, if you are in the pit, and hopefully if someone is in that pit with you, they're going to remind you of this. I've had times in my life where it's been very painful, but God is still faithful, and I don't know how God is going to do this. I don't know. But I know that God's been faithful in my life, and we're going to pray that God's going to prove faithful in your life too. You don't make any promises, but you lead people back to Jesus. You lead people back to the one that can lead them out of the pit. Because here's the thing. Where was God in the story? God was in Reuben, and God was in Judah. And God, oddly enough, was in the Midianite traders and merchants. Because God had something new planned. God didn't cause it. Oh, God did not cause that. But God never wastes an opportunity, and God won't waste your pit. God doesn't waste your pit. So what was meant for evil, God will turn for good. God always does it. He's the best at it. It's the thing the resurrection proves more than anything else. What is meant for evil, God turns for good. That's the story of the series. Now, if you are in the pit, then I've got some prayers that I want to remind you of. The first is this, Psalm 41-3. This is a prayer that I prayed when I was in the lowest low. Last year, I had a really hard year. I won't go into all the details, but it was really, really, really hard. Psalm 41-3 was a saving grace for me. I would pray, and maybe this is you, and I want you to just read these words silently, pray them with your heart. I would pray, I put all my hope in the Lord. He leaned down to me and he listened to my cry for help. He lifted me out of the pit of death, out of the mud and the filth, and set my feet on solid rock. He steadied my legs, and he put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise for our God. Many people will learn of this and be amazed. They will trust the Lord. What started with hopelessness ends up in impact. Do you see that? And you're like, wait, he hasn't delivered me from the pit. And that's the key to being released from the pit. You begin to believe that which has not yet happened yet. You believe that there will be a day when this is proven true. Why? Because for the person that wrote Psalm 40, it was true. And you're saying, God, you didn't fail this person, and I know you're not going to fail me. I can't see it. I don't know how. I am in the pit, but right now I am praising you and claiming this for myself. And the second one is this. Psalm 42, this has been one of my favorite psalms from my teenage years. And it's a conversation we have with ourselves when we're in the pit. We say, why are you so downcast, O my soul? Why are you so downcast, my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God. So you're saying, soul, why are you sad? Why are you sad? Put your hope in God. Don't put your hope in getting out of this pit. Put your hope in God. Don't put your hope in the sunny days that may come. Put your hope in God even when you're in the darkest day of your life. And I tell you that because it's so hard, but it brought me out of the pit. It brought me out of the pit. Pits that you don't know and will never know about from my life. It brought me out of the pit. It brought them out of the pit. I know that mentality of saying, "So God's still here. God has not given up." This is a big pit for God to deal with. But God is so much bigger than that pit. My soul is downcast within me, therefore I will, say it with me, I will remember you. And when we remember who God is, that pit, it's still there. But we invite God into that pit with us. Would you pray with me?